Cimoooooooo! What's going on, guys? It's Cimo, coming back at you guys with yet another live duel commentary. So on the left, we have Orcust. I believe this is a Pure Orcust build, obviously one of the strongest decks of the current format, going up against a new challenger and a new take on Orcust, Lunalight Orcust. Now, I promise you, this is purely coincidental. If you've been following my content for the past week, I have been doing a series on Lunalight Orcust discussing all the ins and outs of the deck, and it just so happens that this player happens to be playing it, so I guess that kind of goes hand in hand. But Lunalight Orcust, a really cool deck. It's able to combo off very hard, maybe harder than some of the other Orcust variants, but Pure Orcust is still very strong. You can play some more generic options in the fact that it's able to break boards, maybe play second, going a little bit better, just depending. There are still strengths to the more pure build as well. So we're going to see what reigns supreme here. So Lunalight Orcust is going to start things off with a copy of Danger Mothman, special summoning itself to the field, pitching that Call by the Grave from its effect. And now we're going to see a normal summon of Dark Grepher. This is going to use its effect, pitch the Jackalope, and then dump a copy of Lunalight Kaleidochick to the graveyard. Now we are going to see that Jackalope trigger because it was discarded off of Dark Grepher's effect. This will allow the Lunalight Lunalight Orcust player, to special summon any danger directly from his deck. And he's just building up a bunch of monsters on the field right now. He's going to be able to do stuff like Orcust combo here in a minute, but he also has 2 level 4s on the field, so he could potentially go into Outer Entity Nyarla first and then be able to stop the opponent from being able to use any any hand traps or anything like that. So now we see Lunalight Perfume, the deck's monster reborn that is not once per turn, which is crazy. So he's going to go ahead and special summon Lunalight Kaleidochick from the graveyard, and then Kaleidochick's effect will activate to dump any Lunalight monster to the grave. He's going to go ahead and dump Yellow Marten. Now, that is a cost. Do keep that in mind if you're going up against Lunalight Orcust. That monster that is being sent is a cost, so you can't Ash Blossom it, you can't Effect Veiler it, because it's going to be sent to the graveyard before you already have the opportunity to respond with any sort of effect. It's kind of like with Dante, how Dante mills 3 before you can actually respond to its activation. So do keep that in mind, and don't let your opponent know you have a hand trap if you don't have to, because a lot of people still think that it's an effect and it actually is a cost. One of the reasons why Kaleidochick is so powerful is because it'll almost guarantee get that monster into the graveyard. Now, with plenty of fodder on the field here, the Lunalight player can do a lot of things. I don't know his build exactly, so we're going to have to see what he does. He was potentially thinking about going for an Xyz play there, but now he's going to be linking off. And we're going to go into a Cerberus, so it looks like we're just going to go straight into our Orcust plays here. Nothing I guess there still is the potential to go into your rank 4, because you could just make your Mermaid, get your Nightmare, and then you could make your rank 4 in the arrow that Mermaid provides. So we're going to see what he's got. So he's going to pitch Zephyros the Elite here, which is a really strong discard, because now you can obviously just resurrect that as well. No Lunalight Tiger to back it up, which is unfortunate, but he can go ahead, if he has another card, he can discard that to be able to use the Perfume to search for the Tiger a little bit later on, so that could be very powerful. But it looks like he's going to use Zephyros the Elite, special summon it, and now he has the discard fodder for his Tiger here from Perfume, and it looks like that's what he's going to do. So Perfume has a second effect where you banish it from the graveyard, discard a card, and you get to search for any Lunalight monster and add it to your hand. So he's going to go ahead and get Tiger here, and that is also not a hard once per turn effect. So you could use that if you have multiple copies of Perfume. I do not know how in 2019 that card has 2 non-hard once per turn effects, and they're both insanely good. So now the Lunalight Orcust player has pretty much his setup here. Like I said, he could go into a rank 4 with the Kaleidochick and the Zephyros, which we might see. Looks like he's just checking his graveyard here, and then he could still do his full Orcust combo, no problem. But he did add that Tiger to his hand, so he can go ahead and do stuff now with the Yellow Marten that he dumped off of the Kaleidochick, because he can now use that to bounce the Tiger back to his hand again to just keep generating more and more advantage. That's why this deck is so crazy. The fact that it can abuse a card like Tiger multiple times, I really hope we get to showcase that in this match so that you guys can see just how powerful that this deck can really shine. So Galatea coming down using the Mermaid and the Nightmare. Now the thing is, if he goes into his his Orcust plays, he is locked into Dark, so he does have to keep that in mind here. But it looks like we're gonna go for an Appaloosa with all 3 monsters, making a Link 4, and it's gonna have 3 negations and be on 2,400 attack. So that's pretty strong. And now we can go ahead and use his Tiger here. Tiger can go ahead and resurrect Kaleidochick. Kaleidochick can dump another card to the graveyard, because Kaleidochick, guess what, is also not not a hard once per turn. It is a soft once per turn and can be abused just like this. Now he also has the Yellow Marten engraved, as I've discussed. He also sent another one with this effect, so he can use that effect to bounce Tiger back to his hand, reactivate Tiger, and special summon something else to the field. It just gets crazy. It's so ridiculous what this deck is capable of doing. There's an Abyss Dweller. He must know. You see the look and the expression on the Pure Orcust player's face. The fact that you have Orcust is already, like, you know, worrying enough, but it's Orcust that can make Abyss Dweller in the main deck. It is so powerful. And now we see the Lunalight Orcust player is going to go ahead and start to do his normal Orcust plays. He's going to use Nightmare to send Harp, banish Harp to summon Symbol Skeleton, and now at this point he can probably just use the Tiger here. Yeah, and it looks like that's what he's going to do. He's going to use Tiger to special summon any of his Lunalight, so he's going to get Yellow Marten. That's going to go ahead and make another copy of Galatea, I imagine, here. And there it is. And now he can use the skeleton in the graveyard to banish to special summon the old Galatea. And then he can lay a Dingirsu on top of it, use it to add the Symbol Skeleton back. So now his board has protection. Look at this field. He has the ability. He's also going to get Crescendo too. Don't forget that. So his board is 3 monster negates, an Abyss Dweller to lock out the graveyard. Dingirsu's protecting everything from being destroyed by battle or card effects. Galatea is linked, so it can't be destroyed by battle. And he also has a Crescendo in his back row to negate any card. This is why Lunalight Orcust is one of the best decks at the moment, and if you haven't already checked out my videos on it, you definitely should. So now we see the Pure Orcust player is going to start his turn. We're going to see an immediate detach from Abyss Dweller, and we're going to start things off with an instant fusion here. So the Pure Orcust player on the left is going to go down to 7,000 life points. I think you just let this go because there's really no point to negate anything. They're most likely going to go into Thousand Eyes Restrict, which will immediately just eat a negate from Appaloosa. Sure, it won't destroy the Thousand Eyes, but with 3 monster negates, I don't really think you have to worry too much. You can just go ahead and let him have this one. You want to save that Crescendo for something that's going to be much more impactful later on. The Pure Orcust player might just be trying to figure out how. I'm not actually sure why he's reading Restrict. Maybe he's just checking like the wording for some particular reason on how some interaction might work. But he could also go for Winda potentially. I don't know what good that does because I don't think in this instance it matters. He might just want the monster on the board more than anything. But trying to eat up a negate from Appaloosa I think is pretty important. But he's going to go for the Winda, and that is going to go to the arrow that Appaloosa is pointing to. Definitely be sure to take advantage of your arrows if you can. And so now it seems like he has, I think there's an Armageddonite, I think there's another instant fusion in his hand, and I think that's also an Orcust Nightmare. So it's unfortunate that he drew that, but that's why you play 2. So here comes an Armageddonite, can send any dark to the graveyard. It's basically Kaleido Chick, but it can send any dark, not just a Lunalight monster. So Armageddonite is going to go ahead and, oh, it looks like he was going to do something with that Armageddonite, but it looks like he's decided against that. We know 1 instant fusion in his hand is dead because you can only activate instant fusion once per turn. Orcust Nightmare in the hand isn't the worst if you have a way to discard it, but it's not great either. So here comes Cerberus. Might pitch the Nightmare out of your hand. Oh, he's going to pitch the dead instant fusion. Okay, so he's going to... Let's see here. So Appaloosa negated the Armageddonite. He's using Cerberus to target the Appaloosa, but he actually can't. I think his opponent is telling him that Cerberus can only target monsters in the main monster zone. That is, that's something you do want to keep in mind with Cerberus. I don't think it matters really because whatever he would be targeting, the Orcust, Lunalight Orcust player is just going to negate it and or destroy it at this point. So it looks like we're going to see the detach from Dingirsu here. He might have just targeted anything at that point. I'm assuming that's what happened because, like I said, regardless of what he was targeting, even though you can only target monsters in the main monster zone, sometimes people forget that. You're just going to be eating some form of negation with that. So now he's going to use the Appaloosa to negate the Mermaid. We see the Nightmare getting discarded, and I think all that's left in his hand is a copy of Neo Space Connector and Instant Fusion, and I don't know if that's going to be enough. He's already normal summoned, and I think that just might lead us into game number 2 here, and it looks like he's going to go ahead and scoop things up. So yep, Lunalight Orcust takes game 1, and yeah, that's pretty much how it's going to go when you go up against this deck. If you have no way to stop it, even if you have ways to stop the deck, the crazy thing is you still have the cards like Azathoth to negate your opponent's hand traps. So it's just crazy. It's such a strong deck. We see Fire Formation Tenki come down. Interesting that the Orcust player allowed the Lunalight Orcust player to go first. So I'm not sure if he's playing a going second variant and is just opting for it, or maybe he side decks for going second. It's interesting. But ashing the Tenki, I'm not sure how I feel about ashing Tenki. I guess your Ash Blossom gets much worse if you let it go on, especially if your opponent is playing Azathoth. So we see Mothman. Unfortunately, Mothman hit itself with the danger effect, so both players are going to draw and discard here. Now, Mothman is good in this deck for a couple reasons. First and foremost, it is a level 4, so it helps you go into your rank 4 plays, but also because getting cards into the graveyard isn't too bad. I mean, you have plenty of cards. I mean, look, there's a Danger Nessie he's going to trigger, so he actually gets full value off of this, but a ton of your Lunalight cards and your Orcust cards, you want those cards in the graveyard. So yeah, I think it's bad giving your opponent a draw, but in the end, if you can get yourself a full board like we saw in the first game, you should be in a pretty strong position. So we're going to see a Jackalope be added to the the Lunalight Orcust player's hand. Has another copy of Tenki. That's unfortunate since Tenki is only once per turn. There's also a copy of Pancratops in his hand as well, and that's indicating that the Lunalight Orcust player was assuming he was going to go second, because typically Orcust does want to go first. There are some going second variants, as I've talked about previously, but that just goes to show he might not have a lot of follow-up play. I think there's a Harp Horror in his graveyard as well. And here comes an effect of Danger Jackalope now. So they're going to lay out the cards, shuffle them out. Probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's going to roll a 2. And hits the Pancratops. That's not terrible considering he is going first here, so he's going to get a fresh draw. He has a Harp Horror. He has not Normal Summon yet either, so Normal Summon Harp Horror is actually pretty good because it gets your Harp Horror in the graveyard and you don't have to send it with Nightmare. So even if your opponent has a hand trap here as an example, you still would be able to kind of combo off. But he's going to go straight into Galatea, interestingly enough. Galatea is going to go ahead, or excuse me, Harp Horror is going to go ahead, banish itself, maybe summon a Nightmare here, or excuse me, yeah, Nightmare, and then he can go ahead and link off for Symbol Skeleton. I'm curious what that other card is that he drew. I think he set that other Tenki out of his hand so that he has another one for next turn. But now he's going to link off the Galatea as well as the Nightmare for a either another Galatea. He could go for a Long Girsu as well, and that's what he's going to do. Long Girsu, a very good card. It's I think the biggest drawback to Long Girsu is giving your opponent 2 arrows to work with. That is pretty bad, but if it's if you have the ability to have its effect turned on to be able to shuffle your opponent's cards back, that's pretty good, just if you're able to combine that with something, say, like Babel, but that does require you to have the Babel. So Nightmare's going to banish itself to get Symbol Skeleton in the grave. Skeleton's going to banish itself to resurrect the Galatea, and now we can go ahead and upgrade ourselves into a Dingirsu. Dingirsu's going to reattach Symbol Skeleton. We all know this. This is the same song and dance that Orcust has been tuning for quite some time now. Oh, looks like it might have a response here. Was he possibly contemplating to stop the Symbol Skeleton, or excuse me, the Dingirsu from reattaching one of the materials? That would be an interesting play. Oh, he has Ghost Ogre. Okay, so he was thinking in his head, oh, I can stop this, but unfortunately Dingirsu has the material, so it would prevent it from being destroyed anyway. That would be really cool. I mean, I could see why in your head maybe you might think that work, but yeah, unfortunately, that would just eat the Ogre and Dingirsu would survive, and you would just take a pretty hard -1 there. Ogre, not really too good in this particular matchup. I guess you could use it on the outer entity Nyarla. That would be pretty strong, because in that way you clear that monster, and then they have no way of kind of proceeding at that point, unless they have extenders, but at least you stop the Azathoth from coming down, which is pretty important. So the Pure Orcust player going to go ahead now. He is playing Engage in his build, so he's going to grab Widow Anchor, something you don't really see too commonly, unless he is playing a going second variant like I talked about earlier. Widow Anchor is such a strong card, but he does need multiple spells in his grave to really get the value off of it and steal his opponent's monster. But in this case, it looks like he's got the Hornet Drones too. Okay, so maybe he can get to 3 spells. Drones is pretty good, because now we can go ahead and just make Kagari. Kagari can add back Engage. If he has another Widow Anchor, which I'm not sure if he does, he could potentially add a second, but that seems a little bit greedy. I see another spell. There is an instant fusion, so he could get to 3 spells here with this Widow Anchor, and potentially, oh, it's unfortunate though, because he can't really get it back unless he upgrades into a different Sky Striker before Kagari, but he most likely only plays Kagari since it is Orcust. That would be a really cool interaction if he could pull that off, but unfortunately, I'm not sure if he can. Looks like he's going to upgrade though, go straight into the Kagari here. Kagari's going to presumably add back the Engage. He could go for Drones if he wants to go for a Link 2 play. Possibly force out that Crescendo, but We'll have to see what he goes for. I think that might be a Called by the Grave in his hand. A little bit difficult to tell, but we know he has the Widow Anchor for sure. So he's going to grab the Engage. Now this is also assuming... Oh, it might be a Foolish Burial, actually. So he's got plenty of spells, and now his main monster zone is cleared. So Widow Anchor is online if he so chooses to have it be. It's just difficult because Instant Fusion summons a monster to your zone as well. So it's like, it's hard trying to get the spell count up with also keeping your main monster zone clear, just with the current grip of cards that the Pure Orcust player has. So Foolish Burial is nice though, because it allows him to pretty much get anything he wants here. And I'm not exactly too sure what he sent there. It's very difficult to tell. I would maybe say it's an Orcust card, but again, it's very hard to say. We're going to see a Ghost Ogre normal summon here, so this is definitely going to go into some sort of a Orcust play here, or excuse me, Nightmare play. So he's going to go for... Is he not playing Phoenix? Because I would imagine Phoenix would be a little bit better here. He's going to go for Cerberus, interestingly enough. Cerberus can discard and then pop, or attempt to pop. Dingirsu is just obviously going to protect whatever he targets. Thinking on his discard here. I'm really curious where he's going to go with this. So, no effect. Okay, so he's just making it just to clear up his Link monster. So now he gets to use Engage. Only 2 cards still, but this shows he has another target for Engage besides Drones and Widow Anchor. So he might be playing a Going Second variant that has multiple Widow Anchors in his deck. Taking a look through, hopefully he didn't side it out or anything, because he's looking through and he doesn't have any targets. Oh no, he must have sided them out if he thought that he had something left to search. Oh, that's really unfortunate. So no value there. And I think what's worse about that is the fact that he doesn't have the Engage in his graveyard anymore. So now he doesn't have 3 spells to be able to use the Widow Anchor. Oh man, that's so unfortunate. And I'm just curious how he's going to navigate this with the cards in his hand. The board that the Lunalight Orcust player has isn't unbeatable, but obviously this is still not ideal. He does have he can't use Instant Fusion because he has no arrows pointing to himself. That is just so rough. How is he going to get out of this? I guess you'd have to like go to battle phase, like crash your Cerberus, and then like... yeah, and then like Instant Fusion for something. I guess he's going to go into Mermaid here, and this might force the Crescendo. Oh, this also works too. So Mermaid, pitch, Engage. It's going to force Crescendo. Now your Widow Anchor's online, so that's actually not too bad. Widow Anchor can steal Galatea. You can make your own Dingirsu over that to send theirs to grave. Or you take the Dingirsu, attack over the Galatea, and then you'd have to find a way to get rid of the Galatea, but we're going to see what he does here. Looks like he's going for the Galatea. He's going to take control of that. I feel like he gets most of the value out of it going this route. And he has the Instant Fusion, so this could be enough here, because what he could do is... Oh, he's going to go for... Yeah, because Thousand Eyes Restrict. I was going to say you could possibly go for, like, Winda, potentially. But this also works. So, Thousand Eyes Restrict, taking the Dingirsu, and then now you're going to be able to pretty much just attack in for some damage here. Nothing too crazy. You can link off, have your own play at this point. I don't think... Yeah, this is okay. This is an okay line of play. What I was thinking is you steal it, you make your own Dingirsu, send theirs to the graveyard, and then you have Instant Fusion with Winda, and then you summon Winda, and then your opponent can only special summon 1 monster for their turn, and that might just be enough to like win the game outright from there. But we'll just have to see. So he did send a Harpor to grave with the Foolish Burials. Now we have confirmation of that. So he's going to go ahead and get Nightmare here. Now he's going to be able to set up his own combo at this point, be able to end on his own Dingirsu, and pretty much kind of have a situation that almost mirrors the position that the Lunalight Orcust player had him in, except the Lunalight Orcust player does have a Tenki to work with at the very least. But again, this is going to show, even with that slight misstep from the Pure Orcust player with the Engage, which definitely keep in mind, guys, if you're playing cards like that, make sure you know your targets are valid, because that could be a misplay that could cost you a game significantly. But at this point, the Pure Orcust player should have a pretty good control over this. We know that the Lunalight Orcust player doesn't really have a lot going on. He does have a Harp engraved, so I mean, he's got plenty of resources to be able to get back in this, but we'll have to see. This is kind of why I like the Winda play a little bit better, because it kind of shuts down Orcust's ability to play and come back. He would need like exactly Pankratops to be like his one summon for the turn and be able to like attack over Winda to be able to come back. And even then you have Dingirsu with actually no, Dingirsu only have one material, so that wouldn't work too well. But I mean, again, you're putting them on having exactly Pankratops to come back into the game, or some sort of card to change like Winda's position to be able to like link it off, or something like, say, Widow Anchor or Mind Control or something like that, which is highly, highly unlikely compared to this line of play. But, I mean, the Pure Orcust player is doing his thing, summoning Longirsu, attaching the Orcust Nightmare to the Dingirsu here. He searched the Crescendo. So now we're going to go to battle phase. That's going to be 2,500 and 2,600. So it's going to put the Lunalight Orcust player down quite a bit. The Pure Orcust player also took 1,000 damage, so he's on 7k. But he's got plenty of time. He's got plenty of life points now. And he's sitting pretty healthy at this point. Now, the Lunalight Orcust player, like I said, he's got access to Harp Horror, and here comes the Tenki, which I don't know. Again, I don't think you negate this. I feel like it's like, just let him have it, but then again, it is like one of the big play starters of the deck. You could just also hit the Kaleido Chick instead. Granted, even though if you hit Kaleido Chick, they'll still be able to send Yellow Martin, because guess what? It's not, or excuse me, it is cost, so that wouldn't matter. That's one of the reasons why Kaleido Chick is just so powerful. So he is going to Crescendo the Tenki here, and we'll see if that pays off for him. But he does have some graveyard setups. The Lunalight Orcust player is definitely not out of this yet. Taking a quick glance at his extra deck here, how he's going to want to combat this. So there's a Harp Horror in the grave. He also does have that Crescendo that he can search for his turn as well, to get another resource if he so chooses. So he's going to banish Harp Horror to start things off here. He's going to grab either a Nightmare or a Symbol Skeleton, depending on what he shuffled back previously with his Galatea. He's going to get Symbol Skeleton. Pretty solid, considering the Symbol Skeleton is already... Or excuse me, his Dingirsu is already in the graveyard, so he's got set up there. He's got a monster and a spell in his hand. To see what he's got. So he's going to normal summon. Oh, it's Tsuchinoko. Okay, so that's going to give him 2 monsters for a Link summon. And it looks like he's got a Mermaid. Okay, so he's got 2 Mermaids in his extra deck. So there's a Galatea. Oh, actually, no, he didn't use Mermaid the first time. I apologize. He actually just went straight into Galatea on the first turn. So he's going to go into Galatea. And this is very iconic of the Orcust mirror match. Sometimes they can just be very, very grindy in figuring out like how you're going to manage these resources, because yeah, even though you clear their board, they can just come back and do it again the next turn. The deck is very good at repeating what it does best, just because the engine, especially if you know how to manage your resources correctly, you're going to get into like grind situations like this where you're just going to be trading off Dingirsus and Galateas and Longirsus until eventually one of you whittles away the other out of resources, and it'll just take victory from there. So we see the Symbol Skeleton resurrecting the Dingirsu. Curious to see which effect he's going to use. Looks like he's going to opt to reattach the Nightmare. So both players with a Dingirsu now protecting their boards. Longirsu looking pretty good there. I think that might have been a mistake summoning it to that zone that the Longirsu is pointing towards. And the Lunalight Orcust player just correcting his board because the Galatea should have been in the extra monster zone there. But yeah, those arrows from Longirsu can actually be pretty dangerous here, because he can actually go ahead and like shuffle away the Dingirsu if that doesn't get addressed this turn. So that could be pretty dangerous, but we'll have to see if he has a plan for that Longirsu. So we see Galatea shuffling back a monster, and he's going to activate the Babel here. Babel just granting quick effect access to all of the Orcust cards. Very, very strong card. Crescendo is obviously a little bit better, but Babel is very strong in its own right. I mean, being able to play on your opponent's turn and interact with their stuff then is very good. But it's going to be tricky for him to navigate this. The Pure Orcust player on 7,000 life, so he's going to have to do a lot of damage, not to mention Dingirsu's protecting everything, so it's like Borrelsword Dragon is kind of out of reach at this point, unless he can find a way to clear that. Unicorn coming down. using the Dingirsu and the Galatea for link material. He's going to go ahead and discard the last card in his hand, which was a Called by the Grave, and shuffle Dingirsu back into the extra deck that will detach all the materials. Now, the problem is here, I don't think he can really deal with the Longirsu. So that's still, I mean, granted, the Longirsu could have been much more devastating if he kept that Dingirsu on the field, but at least he put the Dingirsu back in the opponent's extra deck, which I don't think matters too much, but I guess it kind of cuts off a little bit of the recursion because the Symbol Skeleton is actually banished currently, and so there's no way for him to recur a Dingirsu from the graveyard. However, if he has any access to an Orcust Link, he can just special summon immediately, so it's not really too big a deal. We see Orcust Nightmare activating now. He's going to go ahead and send a copy of World Wand to the graveyard. Now he's going to go ahead and attack over the Longirsu. That's going to be a 3,200 attack unicorn. One of the few instances where you actually see the attack gaining effect of the the Orcust Nightmare actually becoming relevant. So able to attack over. Now we have main phase 2. We're going to special summon the Orcust Nightmare back. We're going to go into a Beat Cop. And he's going to pass the turn just to get the resources into the graveyard. Interesting. Okay. And I believe he has a... does he have a Symbol Skeleton engraved? Because if he does, I mean, he could just easily recur. Since Babble's on the field, he can just interact on the opponent's turn quite easily. He might have also shuffled it back with, like, Symbol Skeleton... with a Galatea when he searched out the Babble. So it might have a plan here. So we see a normal summon of Heart Pourer, banishing Orcust Nightmare to send a Dark Machine to the graveyard. Again, that attack gaining effect might come up again. Sometimes there's very few instances where it matters, and that did matter here for the Lunalight Orcust player. So he's going to go ahead and send his own World Wand. Okay, so that's going to put the Heart Pourer to 2,500 attack, I believe, because it gains 800 attack. Heart Pourer is normally on 17. He's going to banish the World Wand to summon his Symbol Skeleton from the Banish Zone, so he is able to get that back. And now he can pretty much just do whatever he wants at this point. He can go and link off into Galatea. He can get his own Babble. He can go into his own Dingirsu. Remember, the Lunalight Orcust player does not have that high a life total at the moment, so he might just need to get in a couple hits here, and we might be seeing a game 3. But that Babble could play a big role here into how he plays his turn. He's going to go ahead and start with banishing Orcust Crescendo, which allows you to search for a Dark Machine and add it to your hand. And so we're going to see what he opts to add here. He's going to go ahead and add a Heart Pourer. That also does lock him into summoning Dark Machines for the rest of the turn, I believe. And we're going to see what else he has here, because he does have a full graveyard and he can interact with his opponent. His Orcust Nightmare can dump one of his cards. But we'll see. Looks like the Pure Orcust player is going to banish Heart Pourer to special summon out any of his Orcust cards from the deck. He's still got a Nightmare in there. I think that might be it, actually. I think it's just... unless he's playing 2 Skeleton, which isn't too common, but some people do it. Okay, so it's a regular Nightmare, as we thought. One of the things to take away from this game as well is definitely know how to manage your resources if you're playing this deck, because that can honestly be the reason why you win or lose a game. You want to make sure that you have the ability to just keep recycling your resources with cards like Longirsu, getting them back into the deck, even Galatea as well, to just keep cycling through to make sure you have threats for each and every turn. We see Symbol Skeleton banishing itself to special summon Longirsu back to the field, and now we see a banish of Crescendo from the Pure Orcust player, so now he's going to go digging for another card. And he's going to grab Gizmek Orochi. So yes, Gizmek Orochi is a Dark Machine and can actually be searched with Orcust Crescendo's banish effect because it meets those criteria. So that's a nice little trick for you Orcust players out there. If you want to tech 1 copy of Gizmek, this is a pretty cool way you can go about it and get in some extra damage here. Now yes, banishing the top 8 of your deck might seem like a lot, but if you're going to go ahead and get in the kill here, I think it's a pretty safe bet. So we're going to see what he does here at this point. I don't really think you have a lot to fear. You're still trying to figure out, I think, if you can find a way to take out the Babble, that's probably the best way to go about it. So Longirsu is going to use its effect, shuffle 2 Orcust back into the deck, and it's going to send that Beat Cop to the graveyard. And now, again, he still has the Orcust cards in his graveyard that he might be able to do stuff with, and that way he could maybe, like, just have some form of defense here. And now we see Galatea shuffling back, and he's going to search for... I'm curious what he's going to search for here, because... Oh, he could get his own Babble, which he presumably has. Because he's not done that yet. Uh-oh, hopefully he didn't side that out as well. Oh, he did! Oh, that's unfortunate. Okay, so... World 1 should be back in the graveyard, or excuse me, back in the banish pile. Just because he's not able to go ahead and search anything. I don't think it'll matter. She should be able to win this turn, I believe. But we'll have to see how he goes about it. So he's taking his time here. You should... Yeah, I feel like this should be a winning position, especially because of the Gizmek. So he's going to go Dingirsu, activate its effect. Dingirsu does not target, keep that in mind. So he would be able to just send he'll be able to send whatever he wants. And then this is going to force a response here from the Lunalight Orcust player because he needs to get his effects off. But the problem is because Dingirsu doesn't target, even if there's like a monster or anything, he could just special summon it and then the Dingirsu would take it out. And he's just showing the Gizmek that should be enough damage. And we're going to game 3, ladies and gentlemen. So Lunalight Orcust versus Pure Orcust. We're grinding it out here. Lunalight Orcust gets to go first, which we've already seen what it's capable of when it does go first. And there's an Ash Blossom for the tanky, but a Called by the Grave for the Ash. We are going off, getting to that Kaleido Chick. That's exactly what this deck wants to do when it goes first. Kind of one of the enablers for all of its combos. If he has Kaleido Chick and like any other extender and like a Tiger or something, he'll be in really good shape. So Kaleido Chick is going to send one of the Lunalight cards to the graveyard for cost. It's going to send the Yellow Martin. Like I said, that's typically what you're going to send a majority of the time. Be able to bounce a Lunalight card back to your hand and special summon itself to the field. Seems pretty good. Oh, and he has the Perfume too. Okay, so this should be a very strong board here if he has an extender. So Perfume is a Monster Reborn, for those of you who don't remember. He's going to overlay, go for the 4 Strix immediately. 4 Strix is going to go ahead and add a copy of Blackwing Zephyros the Elite to the hand, just so you can help start bouncing cards and just get some more rank 4 access. Such a strong card. Zephyros the Elite has been good for so long. Always in decks like this, too. He also has a copy of Danger Mothman in his hand, it looks like. He's going to banish the Lunalight Perfume, pitch the World Wand, so he's got an extender there for later. And he gets to add the Lunalight Tiger to his hand. Now he can activate Tiger, resurrect the Yellow Martin, and then he can... I mean, there's just so many things he can do now with this hand. Especially because he has the Mothman, too. He's got a lot he can work with. So he's going to scale Tiger. Tiger is a Monster Reborn once per turn in the scale. He's going to go ahead and resurrect Yellow Martin. He's going to link off, presumably, to go into a Nightmare, to go into Mermaid. And there's the Cerberus. And here comes the Mermaid. Mermaid can then pitch Zephyros the Elite. That's exactly what he's going to do. Grab the Nightmare, and then he can use Yellow Martin, bounce the Tiger back to his hand to special summon it, rescale the Tiger, and then activate Tiger again because it's only a soft once per turn, go into a rank 4 of choice, which presumably you'll want to go into Abyss Dweller, and again, you'll just have a board very similar to what we saw in Game 1. Now, it looks like the Lunalight player is playing a bit quickly here, so time may be of the essence, and that could be very scary because this is a match I don't think you really want to go into time. They don't have really any access to, like, any specific burn cards, I think, in Orcust, at least in their main sort of engines. Neither decks really do. But again, especially if you're going first and there's only a few minutes left on the clock, you don't get a battle phase. So it's really rough and you sometimes just want to make sure you're playing as quickly as possible. So keep that in mind if you're going to any major tournament or even just the locals. Start to just be cognizant of the clock and know that if you happen to be going into game 3 and there's only a couple minutes left, you might want to opt to go second so you actually get that battle phase and can attempt to swing in for that damage, because if you get to the battle phase before the time runs out and you can actually attack for some damage, that'll be all you need to win the game. Because if you go first, it doesn't matter how big of a board that you make. If you're not doing any damage, it realistically does not matter. So you see the Lunalight Orcust player just playing very quickly here, just trying to assemble a board as quickly as possible. I'm almost fairly certain that is what's going on just based on how he's playing, but he's going to have a pretty solid board here. It's, again, very similar to what we saw in Game 1. He's got the Abyss Dweller loaded up. He just searched Crescendo off of the Galatea. He's got Dingirsu with 2 materials, and it looks like the Lunalight Orcust player is going to pass the turn. So it's a bit rough because that Galatea sitting there is not the best because it's only 1800 attack, so literally just getting any way to access an Orcust Link monster and then just dropping a Dingirsu will be enough to attack over that Galatea and win. Again, this is assuming that time is of the essence here. You could also make the same argument for Abyss Dweller since Abyss Dweller is actually 100 points weaker. But we'll have to see. So Engage is going to grab drones. He can go drones. He can get back the Engage with his Kagari here. Or he can get back drones and go into a Link 2. He can go into like Phoenix to try to force out the Crescendo. And that's really the only form of interaction that he has at the moment, outside of possibly a card in his hand, at least from the Pure Orcust player's perspective. So you could go drones. Oh, we're going to go Widow Anchor to negate the Dweller. Okay. That's interesting. So he's going to allow that to go through. I'm really curious to see where this is going to go here. So he's going to go ahead and summon Neo Space Connector. Oh no, is he going to burn him in time? Oh, that's going to be met by Crescendo, obviously. Okay, so I was about to say, because he's obviously going to play Dolphin. So now we're going to go into the drones here, and now we can just link off the Kagari and the drones for any Link 2. There's no other form of disruption here, so he's going to go Cerberus. Cerberus can, well, Cerberus can't destroy because Dingirsu can still protect. And it looks like he's just going to go straight into Mermaid here. He's going to go to Mermaid. He has to pitch a card to summon Nightmare. I mean, this could just be as easily as going into... Oh, he had the Dolphin in hand. Oh, man. So he's going to go ahead and go for Nightmare. He's going to link both of them away for a Galatea here. And he could just go... Galatea attack over Dweller if time is an issue. Again, I'm not sure if time's an issue, but it seems like we've been commentating this one for quite some time now. It looks like he's just going to banish the Nightmare to go for the Galatea here. So he's going to send the Harp Horror. And now he's going to use Galatea's effect to shuffle back the Nightmare to get a spell or trap. Maybe they're not going into time. I'm curious why he's going by this line. So he's going to set Babel. He's going to activate Babel. He's going to banish his Harp, get his symbol. Then he can link off into a Longirsu here. He can banish symbol to get his Galatea back. He can upgrade Galatea into a Dingirsu. Dingirsu can go ahead and send or reattach, depending on what he wants to do here. And it looks like he's attacking. They might just be in time. I think he drew a... Oh, no. Did they just go into time there? Oh, no. I think that's what happened, because I think that's why he just went straight to battle phase and didn't even do anything with the Dingirsu. So that's unfortunate, but, you know, with the new end-of-match procedures, you sometimes got to play the clock and know what you're doing. But, man, that's just rough. So, Pure Orcust is going to take it, but this definitely did demonstrate how powerful the Lunalight Orcust deck is, and you might want to try that deck out for yourself. So, guys, thank you so much for watching the video, and we'll see you next time.